Heaven and earth, is it going to be a convergence or is it going to be a collision? Daniel chapter 7 and verse 7, we'll come back to this in a little bit. Daniel is seeing these night visions, and after this I saw in a night vision, behold, a fourth beast. So he's seen three previous beasts, and this fourth beast that he saw was dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So we'll come back to this in a little bit, but this guy's different. This kingdom that comes is different. It is not like previous ones. This animal is not natural, normal. As I said, we'll come back to that in just a moment. I believe that it is going to be both a convergence and a collision. The unholy trinity is shaping up right before us. We're seeing these things come together, the economic, political, and governmental system. It's kind of scary how it's coming into focus. We had only dreamed about it and thought about it and wondered about it and saw bits and pieces for decades. And now it's just visualizing right before us. 666 is an easy thing to do now. But it's going to result in a collision with heaven. Amen. The tribulation period, which is 3.5 years or 7 years, depending on how you play that out in prophecy. I believe it's 7 years. The last 3.5 years are the worst part of it. Jesus said was worse than anything the world had seen. So before we get to the study, we'll talk about a little bit of news. France made history this week by enshrining abortion rights in its constitution. They already passed a law. That wasn't good enough. They had to put it in the Constitution so it couldn't be undone without serious work.
Pour l'adoption, 780. Femmes de France, nous disons que nous ne reculerons jamais. Aux femmes du monde, nous disons que nous les soutiendrons et que nous avancerons toujours à leur côté.
The sheer hypocrisy. No, and the reason why I brought this up is not only because it's in the news, but this is becoming more of a worldwide thing. You know, America lit up the Empire State Building, and New York City was lit up when we gave gays rights to be married, and when we had, abortion started big time in New York, and I think there's a lot of judgment. Anyway, so it's becoming outside the United States. Next, Hamas has made the claim. You might have heard them say it. It sounded ridiculous and absurd when they said it. It sounded like typical Muslim making an excuse for doing what they wanted to do. But Hamas claims the red cows imported to Israel and the plan to sacrifice one is the reason why they did what they did on October the 7th. Now, at first, my reaction was, that's not the reason you did it. No, I've come around. That's the reason they did it. See, let me give you the background. In order to begin sacrifices again, Israel has to have holy water. That's where holy water got its start. In the Old Testament, cleansing of the temple and cleansing of priests and so forth. They could not do the function religiously unless they had the ashes of a red heifer sacrifice, taking a pinch of those ashes, putting them in water, and that becomes the water that they would use for cleansing. Okay, that's a real thing. That's baked right into the law. They don't have a temple now, but there has been a movement for decades to come around to where they've got the ability to have a temple and sacrifice again. Well, in order to do that, now they don't, as far as I'm concerned, they don't need to do that because Jesus was the sacrifice. They do. And it is prophesied they will have a temple. And they will do that. So I get excited because it's going to happen. Prophetically, that's what Jesus said was going to happen. 5 cows were raised in Texas that seemed to fit the criteria of being perfect. It had to be a perfect red heifer that was sacrificed, which of course is a type or a symbol of the sacrifice of Jesus, who was the perfect sacrifice. That red heifer is a type of that. So they have these 5 red heifers in Israel, and they've been being examined. They cannot have 2 white or black hairs. And so now they have one that fits the criteria. There's no imperfection in any way. And they want to sacrifice that red heifer, and they want to do it on the Temple Mount. So, yeah, Hamas did what they did because they believe that we're going to the Jews, are going to push their mosque off the temple. They, as stupid as that is, actually, that's maybe not so stupid. I would like to see it gone. But they think we're going to do that. They think that's the beginning of it with this sacrificing a red heifer. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't wait for another set of red heifers and all that. I don't think, when God said perfect, I don't think he meant what those Pharisaical Jews are making it out to be. I think it meant it couldn't have a twisted leg and a lop ear. But I'm not a Jew. I'm not trying to get it done. But we see this happening. And it is energizing Hamas's hatred because they're afraid that's what's going to happen. We're going to push the mosque off the Temple Mount. In the State of the Union, did you hear it? If you listened to it, you have my apologies. He called for a 2-state solution again. Now, there's one problem with a 2-state solution. Hamas and the Muslims have said no, repeatedly over decades now, said no. We don't want 2 states. We want Israel dead. That's all they'll ever be happy with. So why would he say that? Because he's got the left in this country that are going crazy, and he's appeasing them by bringing this up in the State of the Union. He knows it's not going to happen. He knows they've refused it. He's not stupid. He's senile. And then in the news has been the predictions of the black swan events. Have you heard that term, that phrase? Okay, that's becoming a thing you're hearing more and more. I thought I would give you what the definition of a black swan event is. It's more complicated than you think. So there are certain criteria. This is actually a thing that somebody came up with years ago. A black swan event is has to fit a certain criteria. It has to be an event that is a surprise. Okay, you think about 9/11, you think about October 7th. Those are surprises. Technically now, by the way they define that, though, that's not the case. Because somebody should have seen it coming. The evidence was there. Somebody should have known it was coming. The second criteria was the event had to have a major effect, right? October the 7th and 9/11 are those kinds of events that had worldwide implications. And then the third criteria, after the first recorded instance of the event, it is rationalized by hindsight as if it could have been expected. That is, the relevant data were available but unaccounted for in risk mitigation programs. Now, there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. A black swan event actually has to do with when something happens, people will look back and say, oh, yeah, there was this and this and this that should have told us this was going to happen. Okay? We're coming to a time where I believe black swan events are going to be used by nefarious players. So we are white nationalists, right? But at least that's the way they are shaping the conversation up to be. And so when something happens, they're shaping the conversation and the mentality by TikTok and Facebook and YouTube and all of it. They're using those things already to talk about they're going to do something. These white nationalists are going to do something at the election. So my point is, when something happens, it'll be easy to blame us. I mean, this was used on the Jews by Hitler pre-World War II. So that's not really a new thing. We've got a little bit more sophisticated about it. But in ways that I don't want to take the time now to go through, we really are being set up to get blamed for something that's going to happen. You know, I told you last week that the most obvious thing to me, and I don't want it to happen, but if I were them, whoever them is, I would make sure that the best marksman took out the former president and the current president at the same time. You can't take one or the other, or you have half the country mad and up in arms and ready for civil war. You can't take out either one of them without that happening. If you take out both of them, you say, Brother Doug, you're crazy. They wouldn't shed innocent blood just for an election, for power. So you take both of them out, and if I were the vice president or if I was in charge of things, I would say, okay, we've got an emergency. We can't have an election right now. We'll get to that, but not right now. And of course, you never get back to that. Yeah. And hey, the whole country will be on board with it. Yeah. So you can see how these things are being set up to make the scenario play out a certain way. And, you know, maybe they're not going to do that. Maybe they will do some other black swan event for which they will be able to say, no election, or it's the Christians, you know, or however they'll make that play. I just throw that out as a possible scenario. It's the one I would do if I were them. And they've already shaped the narrative so that black people can't instinctively trust white people. So yeah, things could get interesting. So what we're looking at in Daniel, and we're going to look at these four beasts, in particular the fourth beast, because that's the end of it, and that's what David was interested to know. And what's the end of it going to be? That's why we're doing this particular part of this study, is because we want to know what time it is. How close are we to the end? Well, we have indicators in these prophecies. So you know about the second law of thermodynamics. In science, it's called entropy. Entropy. It is a scientific concept that is most commonly associated with a state of disorder, randomness, or uncertainty. Said in common layman's terms, the way I would put it, the universe is slowing down and energy is dissipating, ultimately ending in what scientists call heat death. That's the scientific term for what they believe is going on, that ultimately, finally, there will be all of the heat, there will be a normalization. All the heat will have been dissipated from the hot spots, and the cold spots will have warmed up, and there'll be a uniformity of heat throughout the universe. It'll have equalized. Interestingly, these smart scientists say that when that happens, all of the matter of the universe will have come back together, and the gravitational pull of all that mass is so great that there's going to be another Big Bang. And so it goes, and it'll happen over, and who knows how many times it's happened. Some of those scientists actually talk about it in terms of a resurrection. Like you say, they're just that close that they would go ahead. But this is what's going on in the universe. This seems to be true not just in the physical universe, but throughout. Physically, we're all dying. Entropy. Everything, except as I mentioned Sunday, there's only one place in the universe where this doesn't apply. Remember what that was? The womb. There's something miraculous going on there, and life is coming where there was no life before. How do you see that and not see God? Well, so not only physically but emotionally, the universe is winding down. Emotionally, we are deteriorating in the world. France is celebrating the death of babies. And you know the prophecy Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah. Well, in the days of Noah, what was going on? You had the sexual perversion that was going on with the angels, fallen angels. Wow. Do we have any sexual perversion going on today? I mean, perversion, twisted perversion. Yeah, nothing but, yeah. But not only sexual perversion, in the days of Noah, one of the characteristics, you go back and read Genesis 6, is that there was violence throughout the earth. Wow, let that sink in just a little bit. Has that been going in that direction for a while? Absolutely. Is it any signs of it turning around? Absolutely. I don't know of anything that can turn it around. It's predicted. It's prophesied that this is where things are going to go. And then spiritually, wickedness grows. So 2 Timothy chapter 3. 2 Timothy chapter 3. I thought I had that pulled up. 2 Timothy chapter 3. One of the wonderful things about editing is I can edit this out. Paul said to Timothy about the last days. That's where we are. Now, they thought they were in the last days, but no one can know that until you begin to see some prophecies of end-time stuff shaping up. Know this also, that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves. Facebook. Let that sink in. The name of it is, oh, look at me, Facebook. Lovers of their own selves. We call it selfies. Covetous, boasters, proud, boasters. I posted something on Facebook back in the 6th Super Bowl. It was a Dallas Cowboy made a touchdown. And what did he do? He handed the football to the referee. Boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents. I was listening to some news event the other day where a teenage kid, killed his mother. The only one in the world there was to take care of him. How's that going to work out good for him? It's what we were talking about earlier. They're so stupid or wicked, they can't think about the next thing that's going to happen if they do this. Disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy. Without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and leave captive silly women laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts. Do you get it that Paul's talking about the church? Yeah, this is all true of society. He's talking about the church. They have a form of godliness, but deny the power thereof.
Seems like he was living in our day.
Oh, no kidding. It just becomes all the more relevant. So the second law of thermodynamics is going on. It would seem, see if you agree with this statement, that the seen realm mirrors the unseen realm. If things are deteriorating in the universe, they're deteriorating across the board everywhere. I would just put this to you for your thought, your ruminations. Does the seen universe mirror the unseen? I'll just put this to you. Man was created in the image of God. Now, I know the Bible says God is spirit. The Bible says that we were created in the image of God. You've got to take into account that God is a spirit that's not seen, but he's also a man who is seen.
Absolutely.
Jesus existed before Adam and Eve. Adam was created in the image of Jesus. Now, I've been taken to task. There are people who say I'm taking the Bible far too literally, saying that God has hands and feet and a face like we do. So to further refine our calculations to figure out what time it is, let's take a little bit closer look at Daniel chapter 7. So, Daniel chapter 7, he saw this fourth beast. And this beast was, I want you to see this again in verse 7. The fourth beast was dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. Okay, does that seem like an overstatement? Or does it seem like he's trying to say something? He's dreadful, terrible, and strong exceedingly. Had iron teeth, and he devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. Sounds like even after a thing is dead, he's still doing something to it. That reminds me of Hamas killed those people in that community that were thinking about adopting, and then just recently they came back in and desecrated the cemetery again. They're already dead. They can't do anything more to them. It's just pure hatred. And most important, it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns. Interesting theory about the 10 horns. Who are these? It's been thought by Bible students for a long time that this was going to be the revived Roman Empire, those 10 nations. And maybe. A theory has been put forth, and the longer I think about it, the more I think there might be something to this. There are, let's see, we've got Apple and Microsoft and YouTube and Facebook and TikTok, and we might have about 10 of these technocracies, technology authorities, that are controlling the world. So there's that. So let's talk about that fourth beast just a little bit. They are 4 empires. They will. The focus is going to be on that fourth empire. You know, we could look at the other empires, and if we do, just like in the statue in chapter 2, you see they existed. Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, And the statue really mirrors a lot of things. Medo-Persia was a dual empire, two arms. And there's something about the metal, silver and bronze and iron. You know, you don't think of Rome being a beautiful nation in all of its philosophies. You think about that with Greece. But when you come to Rome, you think of strength. And they had two legs by the time the end of it came around. And indeed, some make the point that the Roman Empire never really went away. It just kind of put on hold for a while. This fourth beast. We come down to the statue. The revival of this thing is going to be the feet. And you remember I've showed this picture of artist renditions of the feet that are partly made of metal and partly made of clay. And they will not cleave together. There's no accidents in Scripture.
Amen.
The three defining characteristics of this last beast. We read about it in 7:19. They're diverse, dreadful, and metallic. Diverse, dreadful, and metallic. The metallic, to me, is obviously a robot with AI. You know, maybe even I could be a robot one of these days. They could put enough implants in me, and I could be like the Borg, which is a perfect picture of what I believe we're looking at. And it's interesting that these four nations are mirrored this way in Daniel 2 and Daniel chapter 7. And this person who put this together made this last beast different from all the rest. All the rest are mammals. And that's how they're described. But this last beast is different. So what would be different than a mammal? A reptile. Interesting. That's what Satan is.
Absolutely.
The fifth cherub was reptilian. Interesting. If not scary. So that word diverse, very interesting in the Hebrew, it's sinah, and it means altered, transformed, morphed, changed from normal to abnormal. Unlike the previous empires, you have the natural beast. This fourth beast has metal teeth. It's not a normal animal or reptile. So it's diverse, meaning that it is unnatural, twisted, and describes our times. It's a beast made for our times. The beast may be our times with one guy in charge of it. So the thesaurus says of unnatural, abnormal. See how you think this fits with our society and things that have been going on. Abnormal, unusual, strange, freakish, artificial, it's a second layer of meaning, man-made, or synthetic, perverted, warped, deviant. So, thinking about a few of the things going on in our society, would this unnatural, twisted definition apply to the morality of our times?
Absolutely.
Sexuality. We all thought homosexuality, that's as unnatural as you can get. And then they took it a step deeper, and we thought, there's the bottom. And now we keep going. Is there a bottom?
Nope. Not as long as God delays coming back.
You know, and there's implications from all these things. We think about the sexual revolution of the 60s, moving into the 70s. So all these perverted sexual experiences What did we come out with in the 80s and the 90s? A child abuser, a pervert on every corner. Then you can go look it up on the Missouri list. You can see how many of them living right around the church here or your community. You can see that.
That's just the ones they report.
Yeah, that's the ones they know about. You're right. But so the sexual revolution has implications. We're living with the implications of that. Disease, COVID was not natural. The vaccine was not natural. You know, and I'll just say a word. I mentioned this earlier. The Bill Gates, World Economic Forum, World Health Organization, they're all on board with, yeah, there's going to be another disease. It's going to be, what did I say, 20 times worse? 10 times worse? What was it, 20 times worse? Well, how would they know that unless they scientifically have the information in front of them about what they've made? Yeah, I think that's exactly it. So many of us, I'll just say this about me, I did not take a vaccine. I had COVID twice. I don't think there was any yardage in taking it, only negatives. But I'm not going to beat my chest and tell you so proudly, I'm not going to take one if they bring it again. You just watch and see how they might scare you. You watch and see how your grandkids begin to die, maybe in your arms. No, they won't allow that. We've got to keep 6 foot distance. I'm just saying, don't say things that you can't make good on. Do you know what kind of a martyr's death you will die? No, you do not. So I just put that out there. We're coming to some fairly scary times, I believe.
Absolutely.
Food? What defines what food is? One of the reasons why I had to fight diabetes was because, in part, the food that we eat has been altered. I mean, if you look at wheat, which is, it's just huge in everything. But if you look at wheat, they have crafted genetically that wheat in such a way that it will grow through drought. Insects, if they bite it, the insect dies. Okay, now think about the implications of that. I'm going to eat that too. So they have altered our food in such a way, I think we're killing ourselves with our food. You can try to eat healthy if you want to. Good luck with that. You've got to go grass-fed, organic. You've got to go through a bunch of hoops, and it's, number one, very expensive. Number two, it's not that easy to come up with it. And number three, there are some things you're just not going to find.
Yeah, well, you can't trust them. You can't trust them whether.
Well, there's that too. There's that too. Generally speaking, the people that are into that are really into that, and you can pretty well trust their designation. In fact, they are so into that, and it is such a thing that the government has begun to come after them, people that raise stuff that way. The economy. Did I see some statistics just recently where that more young people than half in our country would like to see our government communism? I saw that somewhere just recently.
Well, that's what China's been trying to get.
Well, and they're getting it done. TikTok, Facebook, they're using all of it. Government. We're heading towards an unnatural government. I say unnatural in the sense that God said you're supposed to have all these different countries. You're supposed to spread out. And we're not able to come together physically, and so the unholy Trinity is bringing us all together in our government, in our economy, in our religion. You know what your religion is now, don't you? It was climate change. I was talking to somebody recently. My experience with Costco is such that I'd rather you give me a whipping than I have to go to Costco. It's painful. And part of the reason why it's painful, and I don't mean this to come out racist at all, I don't mean it that way, but the foreigners, yeah, I'm guilty. The foreigners at Costco are rude to the extreme compared to those who, it seems to me, are Americans.
Well, I don't like America.
Well, somebody pointed, well, no, they don't like America. Someone pointed out to me, though, and this may be a real thing. You go to India, you go to China, and their bazaars are like that.
Yeah.
If you want through, push your way through. That's not how we're built in this country. And so it feels very unnatural. Anyway, there's that. And then human beings. Well, we haven't gotten to AI yet. We're going to have to talk next week about what is a human. There's these shorts that show up on Facebook. There's this one that, I guess because I clicked on it once, now I'm going to get nonstop. There's this monkey that's on a chain. It's chained. It's outside. And there's a king cobra. And in the first one I saw, this king cobra is reared up and it's right there. The monkey's doing something, eating something. And this king cobra bites at him. And it makes the monkey mad. And he grabs a hold of it and just throws it away. The snake comes back. And then in the next one, this monkey takes this cobra and puts it around his neck and kind of like a shawl. And it seemed like the monkey and this cobra are good friends. Cats and dogs shouldn't live together, right? It's unnatural. Well, so we'll talk next time about what's a human being. For years, so it's been more than 30 years ago, Iowa radio station had a PETA-type person who was running as a Democrat in the state, and was advocating that there was a certain monkey that should have voting rights. That was 30 years ago. And now, these type people are upset with the president for having an Easter egg hunt.
They're going to use potatoes.
They need to use a potato. We'll pick it right back up there next week.